Hey guys, my name is Savi. I'm an executive here at Texas Blockchain, and this is our fourth podcast episode. I'm here with Josh. I'm going to allow Josh to introduce himself. But first, a little bit about us and our connection with Starknet. So at the beginning of this school year, around August, a couple of the executives were invited out to the Starkware boot camp, as well as Hacker House in Palo Alto, and in the San Francisco area in general. And we got to learn from people who work at Starkware and built the whole platform. And it was a great experience. I actually met Josh there as well as meeting him here. And it was a great experience, and that's kind of my connection and the limit of my understanding of Starkware. So I kind of like for you to introduce yourself, and then we'll get further into Starknet in general. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Savi. So I'm Josh. I'm a software engineer at Nethermind, working on the Juno Starknet client. I've been working in and around Starknet for about a year and a half now, and it's been an absolutely amazing experience. I mean, the Starknet Summit back in a few months ago in San Francisco was fantastic.
Yeah.
The Hacker House, the boot camp, the summit itself was fantastic. Really excited to dive into all things Starknet today.
Yeah, so I guess the first question people probably have is, how did you even get into working in the Web3 ecosystem, and then I guess Nethermind specifically?
Yeah, pretty wild story actually. Just went on cryptocurrencyjobs.com one evening and came across the Nethermind internship program.
Okay.
Which I highly recommend. If you're looking for a way to really take that leap of faith and dive into crypto full time.
Yeah.
Nethermind internship program is a great way to do it.
Okay, that's really cool.
Total flexibility on what you work on. You can work on just about any project at Nethermind. And we work on everything from Ethereum to Starknet, and all things blockchain research and development.
When you say that, blockchain research and development, that's what I could see from like Nethermind online. But like, what does that exactly mean? So when you choose a project to work on, are you working as like a consultant almost, or a software engineer for that platform, but you still work for Nethermind? How's the structure?
Yeah, so we work for Nethermind. As an intern, you'll work with Nethermind employees and contractors.
Yeah.
And then Nethermind as a whole has partnerships with just about every major player in the Ethereum ecosystem that you can imagine. And we do research and development projects with them mostly. And then we also are starting to develop a number of products ourselves, the Voyager, Block Explorer for Starknet being one of them. So.
Okay, cool. And so like, I guess as an intern, like you said, it was really flexible. I'm assuming you chose a project, worked on it, and kind of liked it. Like, walk me through that, and then, how you ended up working there full time.
Yeah, so I was actually Starknet from the get-go.
Okay.
I was looking through the projects on my first morning and came across the Juno Starknet client project. I was looking for something more on the protocol engineering side. So that's, developing the actual protocol itself through, by developing a blockchain client. And so this is, the Juno Starknet client is analogous to like Go Ethereum or the Nethermind client, which we developed for Ethereum, except it's a client for Starknet, so it implements the Starknet protocol. I started doing that my first day as an intern, and have been worked on Juno basically every day since then.
Okay, cool. And you've been working at Nethermind for how long now?
I started as an intern in May of 2022, and then I worked part-time through my last year of school and recently came on full-time in May of this year.
Oh, okay, so like right after you graduated?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I guess this is like more of a question I'm just wondering. So what does it mean to be like a client? Like what is the client, the product that you're trying to build? What does that do?
Yeah, so the client is, you can think of it as a full node, as often.
Okay.
Yeah, I use those terms interchangeably.
Yeah.
It communicates with other full nodes in the network Starknet, it's a little bit different because the network is still centralized. We're still gradually decentralizing it. But in Ethereum and Starknet, probably sometime next year, the full nodes will gossip blocks and transactions to each other to build the blockchain.
Okay.
And then once Starknet is fully decentralized, the some full nodes that choose to participate as validators will actually decide the order of blocks and transactions in the chain.
Okay,
and
cool.
so that's the client is really that window into the network that we use.
And the client is what people will set up to run basically full nodes?
Exactly.
On their
That's
end?
the software
The software, okay, Cool. That's really cool. So does that mean that you work directly with like the Starkware team to like make these products?
Yeah, we work very closely with the Starkware team, with the Pathfinder team, which is an alternative implementation, Papyrus is a team at Starkware that is also working on a full node implementation. So there's a number of full node implementations, which we're very happy about. We work closely with all of those teams.
Okay, so what does it mean to have multiple full node implementations? Like, how are they all going to work together?
Yeah, this is actually a challenge we're working through right now. Like, they have to be able to communicate, and, even though they're implemented by separate teams. But it's actually a really good thing because client diversity, having multiple full node implementations, mitigates risk.
Fault tolerant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you have multiple separate implementations, if there's a bug in any one implementation, and the usage or the market share of those implementations is fairly evenly distributed, then a single bug in one implementation won't take down the whole network.
Sure,
And because these networks they should be super resilient to bugs of any kind because they are dealing with, in some cases, billions of dollars in value. Having multiple implementations is imperative.
Okay.
And Starknet is a leading L2 when it comes to having multiple implementations.
I see. And so, like, so you said you work on the Juno client?
Yes.
So what makes, like, the Juno client, like, different from the other clients?
That's a great question. First of all, just designing and getting to build a client for an L2 at Nethermind is really exciting because we get to steal a lot of what the Nethermind client team. We also build a client for Ethereum, the Nethermind client, and so we get to steal a lot of their knowledge and bring it to Starknet, which has been really exciting. One thing that sets Juno apart, and one of the key design decisions it makes, is in the way it organizes its database. Full nodes have to, as I said, they participate in storing all that chain data. And they also store all the state. So, like, you can think like accounts and balances and smart contracts and their storage. And that, as Starknet grows and becomes more and more successful, that state grows drastically. And Juno has plays some very interesting tricks, which was pioneered originally by the Aragon client in Ethereum, to make that database as compact as possible. So even though Starknet is now over 300, the Starknet mainnet chain is over 300,000 blocks long, Juno's database is still well under 100 gigabytes,
and that's
which we're really excited about.
Okay, that's really cool. So, but like, to put it in perspective, compared to another client, let's say, how much is that difference, like 100 gigabytes?
Yeah. So an alternative, so I'll preface this with, we work closely with alternative client or alternative implementations, and that we do make trade-offs to achieve that. That database size. An alternative implementation that makes different trade-offs may exceed 700 gigabytes after 300,000 blocks. So if you're looking for a small database, Juno's the way to go. The trade-off that we make is with storage proofs.
I've heard about storage proofs. Is there like a very basic way to explain that?
Yeah, I mean, historical storage proofs, specifically historical storage proofs. So for, let's say, there's a place in the contract storage, and you want to prove what its value was 50 blocks back. You can't do that with Juno because we remove the information from the database that allows you to make that proof. You can make that proof on the latest block, but not on past blocks. And so it's kind of a niche use case. It is very useful for some projects in the ecosystem, and that's why it's great to have those alternative implementations that can offer that. But if you're looking for if you're just hoping to run a full node just to keep up with the chain or to have the latest state, then Juno will allow you to do that with much less resources.
Okay. Dang, that's really cool. I mean, hopefully you guys understood some of that, but I mean, Josh made it really easy to understand, I feel. Okay, so how about like Starkware in general? Like, I mean, I guess you started working at Nethermind, and the project that you initially picked up was in like the Starkware ecosystem. So like how much have you learned about how Starkware and Starknet works, and like specifically, what are your thoughts about the protocol in general? Kind of just like that.
Yeah. I've only got more optimistic about the power of Starks and Starknet in general.
You got more optimistic.
Only more optimistic. Yeah. You got it. I'm really excited about the future of Validity rollups and Starknet in particular. I think that the quality of the research that has been done and the academic prowess behind Starknet is really impressive. You have some of the foremost theoretical computer scientists and mathematicians who have developed a lot of the low-level, mathematical details that power Starknet today. And now it's really just bringing Nethermind and all these other companies on board who can deliver that product and from the engineering side, which is really exciting. I mean, Starknet itself has been immensely successful. 528 million transactions, 512 million in TVL, and has saved, and through that, those powerful math, that powerful moon math that we were talking about or referring to, has saved Starknet users about $785 million in gas fees, which is really powerful.
That is really powerful. Okay, so like in comparison to the other L2s in the space, I mean, other ones will take advantage of, like optimistic rollups, not like, Starks and Snarks. So like, how do you feel about those layer 2s and their like trajectory, like in comparison to like Starknet?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think Starknet is amazing. I think that its theoretical potential is only just now starting to be realized. I think we have a long way to go on the engineering side to really reach the kind of mass adoption and the kind of use cases that Starknet can see. As far as other rollups, I think it's great that there are a lot of different teams trying to scale Ethereum in different ways. Some of them may succeed, some of them may not. I think at the end, at the end of the day, the more L2s, the more adoption of L2s of scalability solution, I think it's better. But personally, I think Starknet is going to be one of the premier L2s in the future. Yeah.
I mean, I think I agree. After going to that conference on the summit day, we had like they were having talks with the creator of like Starkware, and then like also I forgot their names. It's two guys. Like there's another guy who spoke at the Stanford summit as well, or the Science of Blockchain summit. And you could just kind of tell like they've been in the industry for like 20 years, like working on like cryptography papers. And it's like for them, they've understood it's like a long game. Like even if they theoretically come up with something, it's going to take like 5 to 10 years for engineers to like put it together in like a manner in which is usable by consumers, right? But even then, it's like you still have to continue iterating. So I mean, I guess like what I'm trying to say is like whenever I entered the space, I guess around 2 years ago, it's like really easy to believe. I think I like this like quote. It's like people believe that they're at the end of history.
Yeah,
it's like you think everything is about to converge, and like the next day I'll wake up and like Starkware will take over and everything will be completed, but that's not the case, right? And they completely understand that. And they had a Turing Award winner at the end. It was a lady. I'm like really bad with names.
I think Dr. Goldwasser, I believe, was it?
Yes. Yeah. She just like gave a great talk about how like it's like three geniuses on the stage talking, but she was just like, yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for like 2+ decades, and they're not like burnt out or anything, because the way they think about it, it's like from paper to paper rather than like, oh my gosh, or like reaching for something at the end of the tunnel. Like they're just like trying to make the next better version, and it's going to take time, and they understand that better than anyone. And I think that's why I'm like bullish, right? Because these guys aren't people who are just waiting for something to click the next day. Like they're really playing the long game, and that's what it's going to take. Like from what I can understand, because I'm like listening to their highly abstracted like work, like them speak about that. But that's really good. I guess like you were saying earlier about Starkware and its future use cases, like what it could be used for, and how that hasn't been realized yet. So, what are you like alluding to? Like, what does Starkware need to do right so that it can do this like future implementation? Like, what is that implementation as well?
Yeah, what does it need to do right to
or maybe
achieve
what's
those
it
use
not
cases?
doing right now?
Well, one thing that we're really excited to be working on right now, and hopefully something we'll deliver, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, with respect to Juno specifically, is implementing a P2P layer. So the way I like to think about this is, right now there's a centralized sequencer that sequences the blocks, and this is similar across many rollups. We're all
I've heard about this.
Decentralizing gradually. The full nodes just download the blocks and transactions from that centralized sequencer.
Okay.
Which means that we can save gas costs, for example, but we can't. But we'd like to achieve a greater amount of decentralization, which allows for things like censorship resistance and all of the goodies that Ethereum introduced to the world. So the implementing P2P, basically allowing full nodes to share blocks and transactions with each other, rather than downloading them all from the centralized sequencer, is really a first step in that direction of decentralizing Starknet.
Okay.
And then after we do that, it'll be a matter of, you can think of that as decentralizing the data plane, sharing those blocks and transactions. And then we want to decentralize the control plane, which is enabling the full nodes to decide on the order of those blocks and transactions, and not just receive that order from on high from the centralized sequencer. So decentralizing the data plane with P2P, and then decentralizing the control plane by implementing a decentralized consensus protocol rather than downloading everything, the order from.
When you
the
say P2P,
centralized
you
consensus.
mean like from full node to full node?
Yeah, sorry. Peer-to-peer
Okay.
is what that means. So
Yeah.
instead of having this like server-client network where
Yeah.
we are just downloading everything from a centralized server, we'll be downloading things and sharing things with peers.
Okay, so kind of like how the Ethereum networks, like full nodes, work right now.
Exactly.
Okay, and so whenever you say decentralizing the sequencer, like I've heard this as like people talking about like how the Starkware ecosystem right now is like centralized, but like it's like a design decision. Like you guys have chosen for it to be that way to start off, right? It's on purpose. It's not like just a, okay. But so in regards to decentralizing the sequencer, I've heard a lot of people talk about it. What does that mean? And like, how do you even achieve that? And maybe why hasn't it been done yet?
Yeah, so as far as why hasn't it not been done yet, the Starknet, we want to do things right.
Yeah.
We don't want to just, willy-nilly introduce things like decentralized consensus protocol without adequate testing
Sure.
and rigorous preparation. And these things are challenging research problems and also engineering problems. So we want to make sure we do it right. We're taking the gradual long-term approach. Like you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
we're thinking about what can Starknet look like 10, 20 years from now, not just, we need to get headlines on, some news site or something like that. So
Cointelegraph.
yeah, that exactly. So that's why it hasn't been done yet. Was there another part of the question?
Yeah, so there was like, why hasn't it been done yet? And then like, what does that even mean? Like, so like decentralizing the sequencer, is that any different from like how all these other like protocols like Ethereum have like their consensus mechanisms? Is it going to be a lot different from that?
There may be some differences. We can probably make different trade-offs. We don't need to be as decentralized as Ethereum probably,
Sure.
so we can allow for blocks to be bigger, for example,
Okay.
or shorter block times or something, because we can assume if we have 50 sequencers participating in a decentralized sequencer network, and I don't want to speak for the end design may look a lot different than
Of
what
course,
I'm describing
this
here,
is-
but let's say we have 50 sequencers rather than Ethereum's like 400,000 validators right now.
Sure.
It's much less decentralized than Ethereum, but it still gives us enough fault tolerance and enough decentralization to give us the censorship resistance to some degree.
Yeah.
While also allowing for massively more throughput. And so that's just one. I'm just hypothesizing here. That's one direction we could go. That's one way it may look different.
Yeah.
But the proposed design right now that's kind of being thrown around on forums is basically a modified version of Tendermint, which is well tested and used in the Cosmos ecosystem. So we don't want to be too crazy and introduce something totally new.
Yeah.
There may be subtle differences with regards to the consensus algorithm that we'll implement, but at a conceptual level, it'll probably look similar to Ethereum.
Okay.
Or any other blockchain.
Yeah. Okay, that's really cool. That was just me kind of like trying to figure out where Starknet's going to go. I guess, like going back to your work with Juno, is there like a foreseeable, is there like a roadmap for the work that you've done there? Is it coming to an end? Is it just getting started? Like, where are you guys?
We've got a lot more work to do on Juno. We're really happy with how far we've come so far. We think that the database layout that I mentioned will be perfect for when we do move into this decentralized sequencing regime, because I won't go into the technical details, but that database layout will be excellent for that. So really excited to make Juno into a sequencer, hopefully, eventually.
Yeah.
And then, implementing P2P, like I mentioned, a lot more features. I don't want to bore you with the details,
Sure.
but things like WebSocket subscriptions is something that we've been working on recently.
Yeah.
A variety of other small things, optimizations and so forth.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, and just to put it into perspective, the Nethermind client was being built in 2017 and is still far from being in maintenance mode. There are like 20 engineers working on that project, so we can probably assume Juno may not be that big, but may still be actively developed 6 years from now.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it sounds like you're like a pretty good overall understander of what's happening in Starknet, Starkware, and then I guess Web3 in general. So do you work on projects outside of Nethermind? I know that's your work. So what kind of side projects do you work on? What are you interested in outside of work?
Yeah. Well, this is still a Nethermind project, but it's something I'm really excited about. At Nethermind, we have a Cairo VM and Go being developed, which is really exciting just from an intellectual perspective, watching the Cairo VM be built, and that also has a lot of implications for Juno. Hopefully, integrating the two at some point in the future would be really exciting.
And you're working on that.
So just very minor contributions here and there.
Okay.
That there are amazing engineers at Nethermind who have taken that really, really far.
Yeah. No, because I was just learning. Whenever we were at the Hacker House, I was reading through the Cairo V1 documentation because I heard it was a lot better than Cairo V0, which I mean you'd expect, right? It's the newer version,
Yeah.
and it was really cool. It was like it's supposed to be like Rust based, right? And I thought it was very like intuitive, like the way like everyone had gone about building it. I know it wasn't just one person, right? So I'm hoping the work with the Cairo VM and Go goes really well. Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, and is that like kind of like an open source project, like internally, and you just get to contribute?
It's an open source project. Anyone can contribute.
Oh, okay.
GitHub.com/netherminds/Cairo-VM-Go is the URL, I believe. So if anyone wants to see that, they can go and contribute there. We also have a Telegram. It should be linked in the README.
Yeah.
So if you want to interact with the developers who are working on it at Nethermind, feel free.
Okay, really cool. All right, so we're getting kind of towards the end of our time for this interview. Is there like anything else that you're like want to like shout out working on, either on your own, outside, something you haven't talked about yet?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just to highlight some of the things that I think are really special about Nethermind.
Sure.
I mean, the internship program is something that I highly encourage everyone to look into. Also, if you're interested in building on Starknet, the centralized sequencer has, up to this point, provided endpoints to retrieve those transaction and block data. Now, people will have to use full nodes. I believe December 18th is the date for mainnet.
Okay.
When the centralized sequencer will be deprecated, or the centralized sequencer's public endpoints will be deprecated, and you'll need to start using full nodes.
Okay.
If you don't want to run a full node yourself, you can use any RPC provider, and Nethermind is also standing up an RPC provider.
Okay.
So you can use managed full nodes as a service. So that's something that we're also really excited about. You can join any Nethermind Telegram channel, and I'm sure we'll have links in the description or something where you can learn more about that.
All right, you guys heard it. Make sure to check all of that out, especially the internship program if you guys are interested as students at Texas Blockchain or anywhere else. All right, my name is Savi, and this is Josh. All right, signing out.
Cool, guys.
I never done